The following episode is brought to you by Lux Brand. Visit their site, the link below, and use the coupon code LHMAFIA to get 20% off your order. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is December 17th, 2018, and I just came back from a showing of Peter Jackson's They Shall Not Grow Old, which is his World War I documentary, which is only going to be shown in theaters on two dates, the 17th and the 27th. If it's past the 27th, then you're going to have to look forward to it on Blu-ray or DVD or possibly on BBC, because BBC had a part to do with it. But this is basically, if it's before the 27th, this is your chance to see if it's any good, to go ahead and see it or not. Now, I am a documentary freak. I've got my reviews on different documentaries, and I love film in its own way, too. So I thought this would be a very interesting... This is a Fathom event, by the way. That's why it's being shown in theaters. It's colorized and in 3D. And just to give you a little note, I really don't do 3D well. 3D films, I tend to get really motion sick, and I went and saw Dread 3D, which I love the movie, but I got got really sick. I thought I was going to hurl all over my sister, who was sitting next to me, and she had the same effect too. But the 3D effects in this film, which are phenomenal, by the way, I'm happy to say they didn't do anything to me because, well, basically there's not a lot of movement in the film. They do take the World War I footage, 100-year-old footage. They've cleaned it up digitally, and they went ahead and colorized it and matted it with one mat and in a row. So it's very slow. It's slow-paced action. There's a lot of people walking around looking at the camera, because that's kind of what happens, because you got these people who have probably never seen a camera before in their life, and they're just kind of looking at the camera and smiling kind of awkwardly, and that's kind of what it was like back then when you saw a camera. So... yeah, the film itself is, this was Peter Jackson's first documentary, and it really doesn't show that way, because it has a nice feeling, a nice flow to it. It actually has, it has no narrator. The narrators are actually, they had something like 600 hours of footage of, World War I veterans from the 60s and 70s. BBC had done a bunch of interviews, and he has access to all of it. So basically, it's just quotes from veterans. So the veterans tell the story, which is really an interesting way of doing it. I see there are many ways of doing a documentary. Okay, good ways, bad ways, whatever. I prefer the Ken Burns way. I've just been, that. If you take a look at any of my videos, you know that I like the photos kind of telling the story. And a photo can tell you so many things. Ken Burns is so good at it. But this is a different way of telling it. Okay, you let the storytellers tell the story, and you use the images to help tell the story. And they do an incredible job with the Foley artists, making the sound effects. Really makes you feel like you are there. And there's very little music, and what music it is basically just to supplement everything that's going on screen. So I really did enjoy the way this film moved and felt. Again, it's not a typical documentary, and it kind of felt like it was Peter Jackson's first. He even admits there's two reasons to go see this in the theater. Okay, and they're probably the same reasons you can see it in Blu-ray or DVD. Number one is the 3D effects. To see it in the theater is amazing. It really is. It's bigger than life, especially when it really opens up. Because at the beginning, the 3D effects, it's almost like you're looking through. If you ever saw one of those old video, what they had back in the 1912, 1914, they'd have the movies, and you'd put your eyes up inside the thing and let it run. And it's almost like it's in a box, and you could see what's going on. And then when, you get to Europe, you get to the Western Front, it opens up and the color comes out and everything is matted in layers, and it just looks beautiful. It's beautifully put up there. So the 3D effects are amazing, especially in that open look. It really does look beautiful. Number two reason that you'd want to see it in the theaters is Peter Jackson has an opening for the film, and he does about a 30-minute, how the movie was made documentary after the film, which is fascinating. It really is fascinating about how they came across all this, how he got involved, procedures were done in order to get the film to be slowed down to a 30 frames, make it look like it's a natural feel. You gotta watch a lot of World War I footage. It's really choppy, and it's because it's hand cranked, so you can't get the right number of frames per second. So it's either too fast or too slow, or it's a mixture of both. And they explain how they slowed or sped things up, and how they made it look. They do these things where, because if you ever see those footage, you'll see that's all just one frame, just sort of like what this is right here. It's one solid frame of things going on. There's not a lot of camera movement and stuff. Well, in this way, they were able to digitize it so they could zoom in on something going on and then make like a dramatic camera movement like you see in television or in movies today. So it's really very fascinating, that whole thing. So this is kind of a two-part review that I'm going to do right here. There's one part of this and the second part. First part, as a documentary, how is it? Okay? And I like to think of myself, I watch lots of documentaries. So I'm going to think of myself as, I'm maybe not an expert, but I see a lot of documentaries. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. As a documentary, I think that it's very well put together, and I highly recommend it as a documentary. In fact, in my rating system, I'll go ahead and get that out of the way. I go on a 1 to 5 star rating. 1 star, don't pee on it if it's on fire. That pee could go to some really good uses. And 5 stars, just take all your clothes off, sell everything you own, and jump off the nearest bridge because you're never going to see anything better. This was a solid, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. It really does tell the story. I loved how they went ahead and used the veterans' actual quotes to drive the story along. Now, this is just a small piece of the whole story of the First World War. It's really basically the story of the Western Front, being an English soldier on the Western Front. But of course, all that footage they had was from England, was from Great Britain, and there's lots of stories. Stories about the Indian troops, stories about the troops, the Air Corps, the fight back home, everything going on. The Irish, everything was going on. That Americans, they had there was so much. They decided to simplify it and make it one solid thing, so you could have a 90-minute documentary. And for what that is, it's great. It is great. Yes, you could have gone in a lot of different directions. I'm going to go ahead and make a few suggestions. If you see this and you like it, if you don't like it, well, then maybe documentaries aren't your thing. That's fine. They're not for everybody. I think I would have been happy if they just cleaned it up and didn't colorize it, but Peter Jackson knows his audiences. He knows what people want to see. They will pay money to see this colorization process, and it is beautiful. I'll give you that. It is a fascinating, beautiful, beautiful film, and I'd love to hear what other people who love documentaries think of it. But I will give you a few, if you do see it, I'm going to give you a few suggestions on what else to watch. I would always watch, there's a great channel on YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and plug them right now, called The Great War. They went week by week, 100 years later, 1914 to 1918, week by week, what happened in World War I. It's a fantastic channel. Highly recommend it. I'm going to go ahead and put the link right up here somewhere. And you go ahead and click there. Check them out. I mean, when I'm at work, I just put my headphones on and listen and go through the entire war, basically. It's hours of great content. So check them out. That's a great channel right there. If you do like it, there is a series called Revealing Gallipoli, which is the story of the Gallipoli campaign with the Turks and the soldiers from New Zealand and Australia and Wales, and it's a fascinating story, and it's well put together as well. I would check that out. And same with the series The First World War. I know both of those series are available on Amazon Prime for free. I don't know about Netflix or anything like that, but if you find those, absolutely go check those out. Now, second part of this review. Is it worth it to go see it in the movie theaters? Because it's only going to be available on the big screen on December 27th. Should you go and spend your money to go see it? Well, there's two reasons to see it that way. Number one, to see the 3D effects on the big screen. That's the big one right there. And number two is the documentary that comes afterwards, which will probably be available for people that are watching. It'll be available on the Blu-ray and the DVD, no doubt. Maybe not on BBC if they show it on there. So I would check out if for those two reasons, I would recommend seeing it over there. It's good for history buffs, people who love history, and I would also recommend it for people who are interested in filmmaking, in the history of filmmaking, because the documentary afterwards is really in depth about how they did everything for the film. So if you're really into filmmaking and documentary filmmaking, check that out. I would recommend that you go and stay after the credits and check out the whole thing afterwards. So that is my review of it. I'd love to know what you think of the film, but I would highly recommend it for a documentary buff. If you're just a regular moviegoer and you don't watch documentaries, maybe it's not your thing, but it is Peter Jackson. And if you ever want to tell everybody, I've seen everything that Peter Jackson has made, you're going to have to watch this film. So whether you see it in the theaters or not, it's something I think you should check out. So thank you for watching. I'll check y'all out later.
I was 16 years old and my father allowed me to go.
I was just turned 17 at the time.
I was 16.
I was 15 years.
When they came to us, they were frightened children and had to be made into soldiers.
All right, boys, here it comes. We're in the pictures.
I gave every part of my youth to do a job.
There was a job to be done, and you just got on and did it.